Prime Minister that knows what matters. A Prime Minister that's about getting the incentives right, recognising hard work, getting the best out of New Zealand and New Zealanders. And what's Labour focusing on? What, the salaries of 16 chief executives? Here's a written question, colleagues, that I had recently, which is how many Pākehā does work and income employ? A written question on who pays my coffee account over the road. I mean, is Chris Hipkins so ridiculous that he hears me ordering a cup of coffee, putting it on an account, and then decides that that's a written question? You know, or he wanted to know if we'd been throwing lavish parties. Well, I'm happy to inform him and anyone else that wants to know that actually SingStar and Bring Your Own Casserole night was quite a success at my apartment, and my staff and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So let's get this straight. Last year, in a bid to freeze my office and stop us from actually getting on and doing the job that we wanted to do, Labour asked literally thousands of questions to my office. More than any other ministers, thousands. And you'd think that would make them sound hard-working. But how many stories did they actually get out of it? How much traction did they get from all of those thousands of questions? There was the questions about how much money my office spends on stationery. You know, did they hope that would be the great paper scandal of 2009? How many stories did they get out of that? No. You've got to do the follow-up work. You've actually got to read the answers. You've actually got to read the reports in opposition to make a difference. What Labour didn't know, what Labour weren't used to, was there weren't all those people to read them for them. They have to do the hard work. They have to do the grind to make a real difference. Take last week in the House, for example. Annette King said I snuck the January benefit figures through and stood up in question time all indignant. No, Mrs King, I released them in a press statement that went to everyone the week before. Yes, I did release them early because I thought they were relevant to the discussion that was being having around the HLFS, and asked the department to fast-track the analysis, but they were released. Quite simply, Mrs King had not done her homework or read the stuff on her own department. So they've set off on their attacks again this year. When you've got to ask yourself, what is it with Labour women and their hatred of national women? You know, do they sort of set the girls on because they think it might look a bit bullying if they put the boys...
A point of order, Honourable Steve Chadwick.
I take offence at that remark, as I'm sure other Labour women do. We've never expressed a hatred at all of national women. I don't want that on the record.
You text me, Paula.
Yeah, I know you've taken offence, but the question is whether an offence has actually been committed, and I'm just trying to work through the context in which that was said. It was a collective statement and not levelled at any individuals. Look, I think the safest thing is that the member just ceases to make those inferences in the future, okay? Paula Bennett.
So, Mr Speaker, my point was, though, you do get a real sense of bitterness, eh? And I mean, there was an example of it. You know, that real, you sort of, the venom is sort of crying out and they're sort of getting themselves so worked up about it.
A point of order, Dr. Rajan Prasad.
Mr Speaker, I also, as a man, took offence at the earlier statement. I respect your ruling.
Well,
and I think the member is persisting with exactly the same message, couched in different words. And I suggest you advise her to desist.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I agree that the two terms that have been used rank in the same category. I think I've cautioned the member. I'll be listening carefully to what they say.
My point is, Mr Speaker, that what you get is this certain level of venom that's coming across from the opposition that really don't think it. And I just wondered if it was sort of a bit of a gender thing, and they thought, well, they didn't want it to look like the boys were bullying or something. Well, I say bring on the blokes, man, because, I mean, A, they're not going to be any better, but B, they might actually do some homework. They might actually read press statements that go out. They might actually stick with the issues that matter to New Zealanders. They might actually... And let's get to a real crux of a story recently that just really shows how off the mark Labor can get. See, Ivan from Nelson, yeah? Ivan from Nelson, Labor see him as a victim. I see him as an awesome survivor. What happened with Ivan? Because he was working without pay at a brewery in Nelson after volunteering in the hope of actually getting a job there. So what he did is he applied and he never heard back. So he just marched on down there and asked and offered to work for free to show what he could do. Well, Phil Goff said it hurt poor Ivan's confidence to get knocked back. But I say, good on you, Ivan. I say, good on you for getting off your backside, for taking some initiative and not giving up at the first hurdle. Labor sees him as a victim. You can hear them yelling it out as I speak. But I see him as one of life's real heroes and a young man that is going to go far. So when times were good, we settled for below-average results for Māori and Pacific Islanders in our schools, and now the opposition wonders why they are hardest hit by a weak labour market. After 9 years in a Labour government, 49% of Māori children left school without level 2, the minimum requirement for a modern apprenticeship. There is a lot to turn around. But where Labor get it wrong is that our people have courage, our people have aspiration. They don't sit around waiting for answers from government. They get out and seek them themselves and drive solutions that meet their own needs. And this government will support them in that. You know, the whole whānau ora thing, why is it so hard for Labor to understand it? You know, what we've seen for years is their solution is let's throw more money, throw more programs, let's just chuck it at it and hope that it goes away. And goodness help us if we actually stand up for accountability. Micromanage, you know, get picky on ticking those boxes, but don't actually trust iwi, don't actually trust organisations to know what is best for them, to see their own in all of its totality and get on with the job that really needs to be done. You know, whānau ora has been developed by the Māori Party via, you know, the task force that's gone out and all of those other means, by going out and speaking at hui. But the concept is one that can apply to all New Zealanders. It is about seeing them in all of their individuality, seeing them as they fit in with a family, seeing how that family fits in with a community and addressing all of those needs. It ain't rocket science to know that it's about putting the strength back with the people. It's about putting it back with the people. It's a new, innovative approach and one that this government is very excited about. And the welfare changes that the Prime Minister indicated is coming up. It is about fairness. The Prime Minister outlined some of the changes we are looking at. And I can't help but have a particular bias, Mr Speaker, towards the work we're going to be doing with sole parents. We're backing them to back themselves and knowing that a lifetime on welfare is one of dependency and limited income. But more than that, I think that long-term periods on welfare is actually over time erodes one's own spirit. So ask what prevents them from going back into work. Ask them what stops them from taking that step forward and knowing how they can get there. And they may not tell you directly, because they often will, but take the time with them and they'll tell you it's about fear, you know. Putting yourself out there to an employer, you know, telling them you're worth something, trying to juggle kids in a household and the demands of running everything else around it and a job. Actually, it's no easy feat. But it's one that these women are really capable of making and one that I back them to make. I will not see them as victims. I will not see them as intergenerational welfare dependency. I will back them to back themselves every time and believe that they can make a fundamental difference for both themselves and their families and their children. It will happen over a long period of time, Mr Speaker. You will see the changes coming in incrementally as that work is, and we've heard concerns around how long it will take, but you know, by the time a bill is actually introduced, it goes through its select committee process, comes back to the House and is there, we are going to see some quite major changes in that, and one that we absolutely believe in. The unemployment benefit after 1 year You know, what I think is often forgotten by the opposition is that the unemployment benefit is there for those who are temporarily